This is Lost Lake Park. It's right here in the town I live in. It's supposedly haunted by spirits of Native Americans. We're not too happy about how this park came to be. Today we're going to talk about the mystical past of this park, legends of the spirits that may or may not dwell within it, and the unsettling mystery of a missing burial ground. Now this is an interesting topic for me to cover, because while I do love ghost stories and all things paranormal, I'm also a historian. So I always like to try to find historical documentation to back up these sorts of stories. But today, we're not going to have a lot of that. Much of what we're going to be talking about is based on legends passed down through generations. Stories that were told around campfires. Stories that were handed down from grandparents to grandchildren. This makes the task of researching the history of the park even more difficult, since no two people seem to agree on the exact details of the story. What I've done is compiled as much information as I can from various sources to make the most complete telling of this story as possible. So let's just get right into it. There are many different Native American tribes who have legends about Lost Lake. Each one has a slightly different version of the story. But according to local lore, long ago this area was home to a peaceful tribe of Native Americans. They lived in harmony with nature, hunting and fishing, gathering and trading, just trying to live their lives the best they could. At some point, though, the government showed up, either the U.S. Army or the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and they told the natives that they had to move to a reservation. Now, depending on which version of the story you hear, there are two possible outcomes. In one telling, the tribe is given an option to either move to the reservation or stay and become U.S. citizens. They choose to stay. As far as I can tell, this didn't happen at any point in history. No tribe in Wisconsin chose to stay and become U.S. citizens. Instead, they were forced to move to reservations against their will. So maybe the second version of the story is a little bit more accurate. According to this version, the tribe refused to leave their ancestral lands and fight against the army. A battle ensues, and the Native Americans are defeated. The soldiers burn their village and destroy everything they leave behind. Then they throw their bodies into the lake, now known as Lost Lake, and leave their spirits trapped forever. Now, to be perfectly honest, this story is a little upsetting to me. Not only is it inaccurate, but it perpetuates a harmful stereotype that Native Americans are uncivilized savages who live for war and violence. There are very few accounts of violence perpetrated by Native Americans in this area, and none that I am aware of that would fit the description of such a large-scale massacre. If anything, the history of this area during the time period in which the story is supposed to have taken place is one of peace between the settlers and the native population. You see, Wisconsin was settled by French fur traders and missionaries starting in the mid-1600s. Over the next 100 years, they would establish several trading posts throughout the region, including one right here in the Delafield area. According to the records of the Catholic Church, the first tribe they encountered in this area was the Illinois Confederation, who had villages along the Rock River and Lake Michigan. The mission in Delafield was established to convert them to Christianity and teach them civilized European customs. We know from missionary reports that over time, the Illinois did abandon their villages along the lakes and rivers and relocate further west. But we also know that they left willingly, or at least they were never forced to leave by military action. In fact, according to Jesuit missionary Louis Hennepin, when the Illinois left the Delafield area, they actually gifted the land to him so that he could start a farm there. This seems to indicate that any Native Americans who were living near present day Delafield when the park was built were members of the Illinois Confederation. They certainly weren't killed by the U.S. Army. Otherwise, why would they gift Hennepin the land? So where did this story come from? Who knows? Maybe it's based on some obscure event that I'm unaware of. But I do find it kind of strange that the story doesn't seem to line up with the historical record. Another thing that doesn't quite line up is the location of a burial ground. According to local lore, there used to be a burial ground located right here on the peninsula where the park is now. This is never mentioned in any official documents, nor have archaeologists ever uncovered evidence of a burial ground here. Some people claim that it's buried under the ice in Lost Lake, while others say it's concealed somewhere in the woods. Still others say the local Native American tribe was so ashamed of their ancestors' supposed massacre that they hid the burial ground and covered up the evidence. Personally, I tend to think that this story evolved as the burial ground became lost to time. When the village of Delafield was platted out in 1836, There were no known burial grounds within its boundaries, but the early settlers were well aware of the burial ground nearby. William van Valkenburg, who settled in the area in 1840, said that the nearest cemetery to town was half a mile north on the road to Oconomowoc. That would place it somewhere around this house. Whether or not anyone was ever buried here is unknown, though. In 1892, the Delafield correspondent for the Waukesha, Freeman wrote a letter to the editor about the need to preserve the burial ground. He wrote, quote, "I want to call your attention to a matter of great importance to us all. I refer to the preservation of the ancient cemetery on the shore of Lost Lake. Our town board has set apart a strip of land on the west side of the lake to be used as a public park. This strip of land contains the graves of our pioneer fathers and should be held sacred by us as such. We learn with interest the recent discovery of a mound near Burlington containing the remains of our Aboriginal citizens. And it occurs to us that the similar resting place of the dead near our village is in danger of being destroyed. Over the years, people began to notice that the trees surrounding the lake were getting close to the water's edge, almost growing right down into the lake itself. It seemed to them that the forest was reaching out to consume the lake whole. Legend says that if you go down to the lake at night, you can hear the spirits of the Native Americans wailing and gnashing their teeth as the forest closes in around them. It's as if the very trees themselves are reaching out to reclaim what was lost. The legend of the lost burial ground continued to grow until 1939, when archaeologists found evidence of a burial mound on the grounds of what would become Nagawaki Park. This park is right down the street from Lost Lake Park and was officially dedicated as a public park. On July 11, 1940, archaeologists excavated the site in August of that same year. They found that the burial mound contained the remains of 43 individuals, many of whom were related. Carbon-14 dating revealed that the oldest individual buried there died around 1300 AD. What is interesting about this burial ground is that it seems to have been used sporadically over a very long period of time. In other words, it was definitely used after the year 1300, but when exactly it stopped being used is unknown. So now let's get back to Lost Lake Park. While the archaeological survey for Lost Lake Park was completed in 1976, the results of that survey were not made public. However, that same year, a local historian named Henry D. Smith published his own research into the subject. He concluded that there were no burials on the lakefront property. The town board agreed and decided to move forward with plans to build the park. But then something odd happened. During construction, workers uncovered human bones. They found a total of 8 individuals and what appeared to be a hearth. Unfortunately, we don't know what happened to those remains. The records say they were turned over to the state, but I couldn't find any evidence of a collection of Native American remains at the State Museum. The archaeological survey conducted that same year failed to turn up any more evidence of burials. It did, however, find evidence of a campfire ring on the peninsula, one that predated the fireplace that's still there today. So what does all this mean? Did a massacre take place here? Was there a burial ground here? Were the Native Americans relocated peacefully? Or were they driven out by force? The simple truth is we don't really know. All we have are legends, stories passed down through generations that have become embellished and altered with each retelling. If you ask me, I think it is best to err on the side of caution and respect the possibility that a massacre did take place here. Regardless of the truth, the legends have inspired a beautiful park that many people enjoy every day. And I think that's a wonderful thing. The legends have also led to a renewed interest in the history of the Native Americans, who once called this area home. That's a good thing too. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to watch another one, go ahead and click one of these.